that short of, a flotation device or a stick or something like that, if you actually have to go out and make contact with the person, the only way that you can have a successful rescue is if the victim, the drowning victim, surrenders to you. They have to give up control. And it needs to be total. All right? And I'll tell you, and even when we look at the mechanics of that, just in my own lifetime, you go for your swimmers, your lifeguard, they've changed what you're supposed to do a half a dozen times. Do you know why? Because there is no way for you to lay a hand on a drowning person who is not surrendered to you without putting yourself in danger. So they say, well, come in from behind them, grab them around the neck, don't grab them, push them in front of you. Hey, bottom line is, unless they surrender completely, the rescue is going to have problems. See, the same thing is true for us. Jesus is so willing and eager to step into our circumstances, but we have to surrender. He's not going to come in while you're still wanting to control every circumstance, every situation. You have to surrender. You have to come under. Whatever you're going through right now. And I know, because many of you have me praying for you. And there are a lot of very serious things. There are people in here, you're struggling with medical conditions where the doctors have come to the end that they don't know what to do. Some of you serious struggles in relationships. Some of you are struggling with alcohol or substance abuse, and I know all of those things. And the key to you is to surrender. The key is to surrender. Lord, this is no longer my problem. But Lord, I can't do this on my own. It's no longer mine, Lord, to worry about, to stress about. I surrender to you. And from this moment forward, Lord, I'm just going to do the next right thing. I'm not going to worry about this. I'm not going to stress about this. I'm not going to carry it, Lord. From this moment forward, it's yours, and I'm just going to do the next right thing. This should be our default setting, this surrendering. Every day throughout the day, every week throughout the week, every time we face a stress or a struggle, a trial, a heartache, Lord, I give this to you. I surrender. Laura and I, we surrendered our lives, our marriage, our kids, our finances, even our future and our own plans, our careers. We surrendered all of that to the Lord years ago. But while surrender is a one-time event, and it is also an ongoing process. We not only surrendered, past tense, our lives to Christ, but we have been actively surrendering for years. We do it today. God's car, God's house, God's children, God's problems, right? Surrender, surrender, surrender. Well, what does that look like tangibly? Some of you know, if you've known us for very long, our car issues used to be epic, And I can tell you with all honesty, because we surrendered those to the Lord, and so they're the Lord's cars, not our cars, we've had lots of major breakdowns, and I have honestly said openly in front of my wife and my kids, well, God, what are you going to do about your car? I have said out loud, my wife said, well, God, that's not what we were going to do with your money, but it's your money, why would we worry about it? Well, I'm not upset when your car breaks down. Why am I going to be upset when his does? He's got more money than you do, right? He can fix it if he wants to, right? It's his deal. And when you surrender, when you truly surrender, suddenly you have this peace. The Bible calls it peace that passes understanding. It's a peace that the world can't even understand. Sometimes you don't even understand it yourself. You think, that ought to be a wreck right now, but I feel pretty good. Because you've surrendered. Because you've surrendered. It's so freeing to not have to carry all of that. And I'm not talking about just little things. I've had to surrender big things in life. There was a day in this very room a number of years ago when after the service my wife fell down. She went into a seizure. Ambulance got here, she had another seizure in the ambulance. She got to the hospital, she had another seizure. They did an MRI. She had a brain tumor. She kept having seizures. She kept falling down. The doctor appeared. And I believe this is the Lord now. You're in retrospect, but he just absolutely, I'll just say this. I diagnosed accurately from Mayo Clinic's website what he refused. It wasn't a failure, but it was a refusal, what he refused to see. I think the Lord was in that, because it ended up being much more difficult than what anyone could ever imagine. We flew up to Mayo Clinic. They said it's going to be a 3-hour surgery to remove this tumor, and 3 hours came and went, and then it was 3.5, and then it was 4, and then it was 4.5, and then it was 5, and then it was 5.5, and then it was 6, and then it was 6.5, and I'm sitting in that waiting room, and I want to tell you that I had already surrendered my life to the Lord. I'd already surrendered. I said, Lord, I don't know how I'm going to raise these 5 children without it. But I want to tell you that I had peace even as I waited. Because I had surrendered. I said, Lord, she doesn't belong to me. She belongs to you. And you love her more than I ever would. More than I have the capacity, the ability to. And I surrendered her, you see, in a very real way. When you surrender, Jesus moves in. He comes out of the corner. And in my weakness, his strength was made perfect. This is the promise that he has for all of us. There is certainly more heartache in this lifetime than any of us need or desire. It is so wonderful to not have to carry it all. It's so encouraging to constantly, thankfully remember that this world is not my home, that this life is not the end, that really beautiful things are waiting at the finish line. In fact, 1 Peter 1:6 says, in all this you greatly rejoice. Though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. Stop carrying those burdens. Release them. Do whatever good you can, but don't battle. Allow the Lord to fight for you. Jesus continued, John 17, verse 13, I am coming to you now, but I say these things while I am still in the world, so that they may have the full measure of my joy in them. And the joy of the Lord is your strength. I want to tell you something. You feel weak and worn out. Well, it's because you don't have any joy. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Surrender. He will fill you with that joy. And some of you, you say that you're joyful, but you forgot to tell your face. You need to smile a little bit. All right? And then suddenly, people around you say, hey, what happened? Are you feeling okay? No, really, what? The joy of the Lord is your strength. My prayer in verse 15 is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. They are not of the world, and even as I am not of it, sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world. See, God's plan is not to take us out of the world, but rather to have us lead the world to Him. As God sent Christ, so Christ sends us. Don't be overwhelmed. Don't be discouraged. Remember to smile. And finally, Philippians 4:8. This is a great finally for every morning's Bible study. A great finally for every time that you open the Word. A great finally for every time that you're finishing a time of prayer. Right here, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Some of you, man, you have to start taking your thoughts captive because you're letting your thoughts go all these places that tie you up in knots. and make you miserable and cynical and